I always will remember well the day we went away, sailing out of Belfast in the morning. I am the wee fellery man, a rattling, roaring Irishman. I'll do all the dippy you can, for I am the wee fellery man. And I have a sister Mary Ann, she washes her face in the frying pan. She combs her hair with the leg of a chair, and she scratches her belly with her big toenail. I'm the wee fellery man, a rattling, roaring Irishman. I'll do all the dippy you can, for I am the wee fellery man. So early in the morning, so early in the morning, so early in the morning, before the break of day. When I was young, I had no sense. I bought a wee fiddle for 18 pence. The only tune that I could play was over the hills and very far away. So early in the morning, so early in the morning, so early in the morning, before the break of day. Hello, you're very, very welcome to the program. No matter where you are or who you are or where you would like to be. I suppose I should ask you, how are you for a start? And it used to be, how are you was just another way of saying hello. But when you inquire about how are you these days, it's hoping that you're all very well in these strange times. I really enjoyed the program last week, playing for you, and also I enjoyed the replies from yourselves, and hopefully you'll enjoy tonight. We had a very wonderful guest last week on the program, Professor Gabriel Skelly, and some of the things he said, people have written in with very, very positive comments on that. Well, I started off there with a children's song, and we all were children at one time or other, or at least most of us were. But those of us who weren't, well, you would understand songs like that. Actually, I'm just thinking, at this moment, I should have been playing in Balachi. I get a bit of a fright earlier today because this automatic calendar that comes through and the computer said Balachi tonight. And suddenly, how am I going to get to Balachi tonight because I'm doing this program here? But of course, my wife kind of said, you're not going to Balachi tonight. There's nothing happening tonight because everybody's locked in or locked down or locked sideways or somewhere. But you know what I think I'll do? If I can find this capo of mine, and if I can't find it, I'll do it later. I can't find it, but I'll find it in a minute or two. I'll do an old children's song because I was going to do one referring to Balachi and Seamus Heaney, and we'll do this. We'll do this after a while. But this is a song, a children's song, about a little girl who used to like bananas. And this was how things used to develop. Mama, will you buy me will you buy me Mama, will you buy me a banana? Mama, will you peel the skin? Will you peel the skin? Will you peel the skin? Mama, will you peel the skin of my banana? Mama, do you want to fight? Do you want to fight? Do you want to fight? Mama, do you want to fight? A fight with my banana. Mama, don't eat too much, don't eat too much, don't eat too much. Mama, don't eat too much of my banana. Mama, you ate it all, you ate it all, you ate it all. Mama, you ate it all, you ate all my banana. Mama, you're a greedy gut, you're a greedy gut, you're a greedy gut. Mama, you're a greedy gut, you ate all my banana. Mama, will you buy me a, will you buy me a, will you buy me a? Mama, will you buy me a banana? You didn't eat the other one, the other one, the other one. You didn't eat the other one, so you'll get no more banana. Mama, will you buy me a? Well, you know, uh, one of my children is in Barcelona tonight, and herself and her cousins Sarika and Emer and Ryan and Fran, they're all over the place. Some are in Canada, some are in Sweden, some are in Vancouver. But a lot of the kids got together to play a couple of tunes, and in this way, the people do these things nowadays. When you can't actually meet in person, you organize it through the computer, through all these modern things. So this is a tune. It's called the Breton Lockdown, and here they are from all arts and parts of the world. There you heard the Breton Lockdown from Naliani and Colin and Ben and John and Michal and Anne was there as well. And it's a great way to get together when there's no other way to do it. Well, I found my capo. I found it. Uh, and it saves you stretching your fingers. But I was speaking about Balachi. I was supposed to be playing up in the Seamus Heaney Centre tonight. And of course, everything's off. But this song or two pieces came into my mind. I had the great pleasure and privilege of doing some events, a little tour with Seamus some years ago, and we started off in Clifton in Connemara, and we played around a few different places. But I remember the night before we were due to play in Clifton, Seamus rang me up and he said, "We're doing this thing tomorrow night. I suppose we better think about what we're going to do." And I says, "I suppose we better." And he says, "What do you think?" I says, "What do you think?" And he thought a while and he says, "I think we'll know when we get there." End of rehearsal. And we did know when we got there. Seamus had the idea of I would sing a song which would remind him of a poem. Then I would sing a song which kind of followed in some way from that. And this is a song that I sang, and it went along with Seamus's poem. The song it's a sad song, but we have many sad songs, and the sad songs were never meant to make us sad. Really, they were meant to take the sadness out of us, to leave space somehow for the dance of life to return. But a long time ago, my mother's dead now, but we had to take her to a nursing home. She was very ill, and it was a very, very difficult thing. I remember I was walking through the door with her for the last time, and I was holding her by the hand, and I could feel a sense of fear in her hand, in the same way as I imagined she had felt a sense of fear in my hand the first day she'd taken me to school. And I didn't know what to do, but she did. In all her confusion, there were these moments of great clarity and wisdom. And she knew what to do. And it meant an awful lot to me. But Seamus's poem is about his father. He was ploughing with horses. And the little boy was running behind him, getting in the way all the time. And Seamus wrote this beautiful poem called The Follower. My father worked with a horse plough. His shoulders globed like a full sail, strung between the shafts and the furrow, and the horses strayed to his clicking tongue. An expert, he could set the wing and and set the sock so well. An expert. I stumbled in his hobnailed wake, fell sometimes in the polished sod. Sometimes he rode me on his back, dipping and rising to his plod. I wanted to grow up and plough, to close one eye and stiffen my arm. All I ever did was follow in his broad shadow round the farm. I was a nuisance, tripping and falling and yapping always. But today, it's my father who keeps stumbling behind me, will not go away. Now is the moment of parting. I can feel all the fear in your hand. leaving a home full of memories on the verge of strange new land. Doesn't seem so long since the last time, the first day they took me to school, searching for words that are gentle, being brave so the tears don't come true. Goodbye, love, there's no one leaving. Goodbye, love, there's no one leaving. How swiftly the years seem to follow, but I never could see you grow old. We both turned the hay in the summer, and we sang when the winter was cold. And the stories I tell to my children are the ones that they told me before. But the story now slowly unfolding is the saddest story of all. Goodbye, love, there's no one leaving. Goodbye, love, there's no one leaving. I don't know how much you can hear me, but you seem quite content on your own. Are you drifting away like the summer to the days of your childhood at home? And just when I feel I betrayed you, I am lost and I don't know what to do. You smile and you whisper, my darling, you must go and take your little one to school. Goodbye, love, there's no one leaving. Goodbye, love, there's no one leaving. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry, my throat has got a bit funny for some reason, but I hope you made out the words okay. Well, last week on the program, it was Christina O'Shaughnessy who had asked me to sing a song, and I didn't have time to get it in last week. So it's a sort of an outside song and not really for inside at all. And you'll understand why, because it was sung before there were any insides. Strange thing to say. There weren't any houses. There weren't any people. It goes back a long time. And People talk about Chaucer being the grandfather of literature in these islands. This song is back away, away, away beyond that to the supposed to be 500 BC. But I should just give a little bit of background to it. Uh, if you look out through the window here, you can see the Carlingford Mountains, Cooley Mountains. And my father's mother's people came from there. And she spoke Irish, and she many of the old stories, uh, because as you know, in Ireland, nothing was written down until when the monks arrived, the 700s, 800. Before that, everything was handed down. And my father was a great storyteller, and he told us a lot of these old stories. But in fact, I remember when we were very young, before we went to school, he said, "Before you go to school and learn what has happened in books, you must first of all learn about what happened before books were written." And so began an Old Testament of songs and stories, handed down, changed around, facts and figures fading and changing with history and time. But what did remain was a secret truth therein, like some old secret cure for the future. And this song comes from that time. It comes from a time before there were any human beings in this place. This is inhabited by the spirit people, the Tuatha Danann. And one morning, three of their goddesses, Banba, Fullu, and Erin, were out walking, admiring the beauty of the landscape and the power of the ocean, when suddenly there was this extra swish in the waves. And what was it but a boatload of human beings above all people, says you. And they said, "Can we come in, please?" And they said, "You can, providing you call this place after us." Well, Banba, Fullu, and Erin were their names, and to this day, the poetic names for Ireland are Banba and Fullu. And Erin, of course, is the traditional name of the land itself. But they were about to land anyway, when the Tuatha Dé Danann said, "Hold a minute, you can't do that. We have to prepare a little Céad Míle Fáilte for you." Well, the welcome they prepared was a storm, a mighty storm. And with this storm, the boats were blown up in the air. And the Malaysians, they called upon their chief bard, a man called, or a woman, we don't know, called Amergin or Aurigin. It means born of song. And this was the first song ever sung. It was addressed to the storm and to nature.
I'm wind on sea, I'm wave on the ocean, I'm the roar of the thundering deep. The thundering deep. I'm an eagle on the cliffside, I'm a stag of 7 petals, I'm a wild bull in Valhalla. I'm a tear let fall by the sun, I'm a lake in the emerald plain, I am a salmon in the river deep, If that I know the reason for stones on the mountain, if that it's a sunset. If not I know the silence of things that are secret. If not I am the tree and the lightning that strikes it. If not I am the song and the singer of songs. The singer of songs. If not I am the storm and the hammer of storms. The hammer of storms. So the storm calmed. It hasn't done it here yet, but it will. It will. See you inside.
Strange song, isn't it? I recorded it outside the only stormy day there was. I think it was last week, and the in many ways it's very very old. It's supposed to be the first song, according to the old stories, the first song ever sung in Ireland, and there's been a lot of learned speculation in regard to what does it mean and that type of thing, and I think it's about associating with what was here. I suppose the spirit people, or call it what you like, they had heard about these humans and they heard they come in and did a bit of wrecking and tearing. So before they could come in, they had to be able to identify and associate with the spirit of nature, which was here. And sometimes we lose that connection with nature, and storms come in all sorts of strange ways. Right. I promised you we would have a special guest on the program tonight, and I had a chat with him earlier on, and I know you're going to enjoy him. I suppose you could call him the last of the Dubliners, the fiddle player, a man who has been all around the world, a great man. Welcome, John Sheehan from the Dubliners. Sheehan, I am delighted to see you. A great friend, a man I admire very much as a musician, and just think it's far from Skypes and Zooms that we were reared.
It is indeed, yeah, yeah. The only Zoom I think that we would have used in those days was Zooming to a gig.
Yes, yes, indeed. And I'm just thinking, yourself and the Dubliners, you're not unaccustomed to interplanetary seismic shifts because you
Oh my God.
moved from dark pubs with black bottles and long beards into a situation of long girls in short skirts about to shriek for joy at your very presence in top of the pops. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that? You were on top of the pops quite actually more than once, I think.
We were on twice actually, but even before there was another seismic shift for me before I entered the long bar with the dark bottles because I had a very conservative job. I was a draftsman and electrician in the ESB, the Electricity Supply Board. And in the early days of the Dubliners, we were doing the odd couple of gigs here and there down the country. And if I needed to, I would take a couple of days annual leave. But eventually, I ran out of the annual leave. And I remember we were doing a gig up in the Ulster Hall in Belfast, not too far from yourself.
Yes.
A venue you'd be well accustomed to. And anyway, I got my brother to ring up the boss and say, John is sick today, he has the flu. And of course, I was up to Belfast doing the gig with the boys and back in the middle of the night. And I came in the next day and the boss says to me, yeah, are you okay? You got over the flu all right? And I said, oh, yeah, feeling a little bit better. I said, oh, that's good. So I was just reading in the Irish Times today where you had a brilliant gig up in the Ulster Hall yesterday. So I thought, oh, this is time to think about this business seriously, running out of annual leave and all that. So eventually I gave in my notice and officially retired from the ESB. And that evening we had a meeting with Ronnie and Barney and Kieran and Luke to discuss the future. I was now a free agent and I could travel anywhere.
Yes.
So we would normally meet in O'Donoghue's pub, but to give the whole meeting a sense, a business-like sense, we moved across the road to a different pub, uh, Donny and Nesbitt's pub, and we had a well, for want of a better word, a meeting to discuss new recordings and tours and whatever we're going to do. And the middle of the meeting, anyway, the whole group broke up. There was a row developed between Ronnie and Barney, and that's the end of it all. F you and F the whole lot, and that's the end of it now. So I'm driving home with Bob Lynch. What in the name of God am I after doing? I'm after giving up my good job with the ESB, and here the group is broken up. So anyway, I was pretty shocked at the whole idea of giving me up my good pensionable job and so on. So anyway, the next day the phone rang and it was Ronnie. He said, "Are you okay for a gig at the weekend?" And I said, "Yeah, but I thought the group broke up last night, Ronnie." He said, "I don't take any notice of that. That happens every couple of weeks." So that was a bit of a seismic shift for me.
Well, it must have been a first shift coming from a respectable sort of background, and they're a fairly wild bunch of boys, weren't they? At
Ah,
least they
yeah,
appeared that way.
was very, very much. Well, none of them had any regular jobs, so there's no sense of responsibility. They just drifted from day to day. They'd meet in O'Donoghue's, having a few pints and a few sessions and doing a bit of busking and the odd gig coming in here and there. And it just went on from day to day and week to week like that. So it's a fairly precarious position for me to find myself in after giving up my good pensionable job. But I
John,
was young and single and carefree and sure, bit of an adventure. Give it a bash and see what happens.
an adventure that went on for a long time. And what a wonderful, I suppose, contribution you made to the quality of life of so many people. John, there's so many things I'd love to talk to you about. The Dubliners,
Mm.
the boys in it, your own work since that. But I thought I saw the flash of a fiddle there somewhere. Do you think, could you give us a tune? Just uh,
What did you say? The flesh of a fiddle. Would that be near enough?
my God, that's the very thing.
And as well as that, I have a bow.
Oh, no.
Oh, do you know what I'll do for the crack?
Yeah.
I wrote a poem about a conversation between a fiddle and a bow.
Ah.
Now you could have the greatest fiddle in the world. You could have a Stradivarius or a Guarneri or whatever, and without a bow, all you can do is pluck the strings. And the bow in itself is quite a humble piece of an instrument because it's a piece of springy stick with horsehair stretched over it. And horsehair is a fairly humble ingredient in its own when you think of its function originally on a horse's tail. Um, that leads me on to another little poem I wrote one time about the hair on a bow, on a fiddle bow. And it goes, humble horsehair, elevated to the fiddler's art, teasing out angelic sounds, a far cry from a horse's fart. Now,
Now we're talking seismic stuff,
now,
all right.
well, let's see. I'll read you this poem, and then maybe I'll play a tune.
Great.
So this is a poem I wrote about the bow and the fiddle, each one claiming to be more important than the other. And anyway, here it goes. So I called it partnership, and it's like a lot of partnerships in life. You have a successful partnership, and then one of the partners gets the idea, I don't need this other fella, I can run this on my own. Are you still there, Tommy?
Are you indeed?
Yeah, no, I just saw myself on the screen there. So I'll read you this bit of a poem, Partnership. Competing for supremacy, fiddle and bow were at it, hammer and tongs. Consider my flawless pedigree, said the fiddle, my fine body of spruce and maple, delicately carved scroll, uniquely shaped F-holes, and above all, my true harmonics and exquisite tone. The bow tossed back a shock of white horsehair, arched its springy spine, and replied, you are indeed a fine specimen of fiddlehood, but without me you would be doomed to a sentence of silence, save for the lonely sound of pizzicato and the wind. What now of your fine pedigree? And what of yours, countered the fiddle? What music can you boast of? You may flex and flaunt your Pernambuco body, but without me you would never have risen above the sound of a horse's fart. Suitably humbled, the bow sulked, while the fiddle reflected on the truth of the bow's reproach. Dumb silence reigned till they acquiesced, acknowledging interdependence. With renewed regard for complementary talents, they surrendered to the maestro's touch, restored to their natural calling in a marriage of music, time, and wood. There you are. There's the fiddle and the bow.
Beautiful, John. Beautiful. We all need each other in one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And doesn't it happen in life so often when you have a partnership, like I was saying, and one gets the idea, I don't think I need this other fellow can do this on my own.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it seldom works out.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I tried that tune. What'll
Please
I
do,
play
John.
for you?
What's it going to be?
I have a couple of new tunes. I wrote this one about 2 years ago for Declan O'Rourke's newborn son. I was with Declan in Glasgow at the Celtic Connections Festival. And I was writing this Strathspey, little Scottish type dance tune. And when Declan got the news that his wife was about to give birth, I said I dedicated to the occasion. So Lundove, they called the young lad, Lundove, the Irish for blackbird.
Mm.
So this piece I called Strathspey for Lundove. I might speed it up and like the Scots do sometimes and go into a bit of a reel out of the same, based on the same general melody. So I'll give it a quick lash for you.
Great song. Ooh. Hey, great song. Wonderful. As I said, there's so many things to talk to you about, John. Uh, with the Dubliners, with your own work as a poet, as a composer, uh, you've been doing so many things and playing in various combinations over the last while. Maybe we'll go back for a moment to the Dubliners. They were they were quite different in many ways from each other, yet there was that wonderful thing that brought them together. And in a sense, all those sounds, the mandolin, the fiddle, the whistle, that they all needed each other to create that sound.
Yeah, it was a unique collection of people, a more eclectic mix you couldn't imagine, I think, when you think of the diverse characters of Luke and Ronnie and Barney and Kieran, and indeed myself, I suppose, the conservative one. But there was something special happened, I think. Each one was a great talent on their own, but uh, when they all got together and there was a special chemistry happened between us, I think, and we became. I know it's a bit of a cliche nowadays, but we became a bit more than the sum of the parts, if you know what I mean. And there was just a certain magic there, and it was a very natural thing. We didn't rehearse very much. Uh, if we were to do anything in the line of a rehearsal, it would be the likes of a couple of minutes before the show in the dressing room. Luke might say, "Oh, I picked up this song yesterday. Have a listen to this," and he'd play a bit of it, and we say, "All right, we'll have a go at that on the gig," to be as casual as that.
Yes. But there's sometimes that you
Yeah.
wouldn't have heard the song much before at all when you went on stage.
Not at all. No, you just
Yes.
to get the general gist of it and say, yeah, should we give it a bash? So
Yes.
we were kind of a rough and ready kind of an attitude, but there was a great talent. Each one could have done a show on their own.
Yes, of course.
But the crack off stage and on the road was great from time to. Yeah, I can remember some great quick liners and repartee between a heckler in the audience and the likes of Luke or Ronnie. They're very quick at the retort. There was one time we were doing a gig, a late night gig down in Galway. I think it was in an old cinema, like a midnight gig. And of course, they were all well oiled up from the pub beforehand. So there was one heckler in the front row, and he was. Sometimes you can get a heckler and he'll shout up a remark, and you get a quick retort, and there's a bit of a laugh, and the show goes on. But this fellow was just messing up everybody's attempt to contribute something to the gig, shouting up inane things. But anyway, came to Luke's turn to do a song, and he stepped forward to the mic, and your man shouts over him, "Hey, woolly head!" And Luke glares back at him, and he says, "At least mine is only woolly on the outside." You know,
That was a good one, all right.
so it's
I
good,
think
good cracks like that.
you mentioned you've been the respectable one. You were also you're the most sober most of the time, and well, in fact, you didn't drink at all in those days, John.
Yeah,
But
that's true. Yeah.
which meant that you probably had the best memory and are in the best position to give an account of what happened. And I know you yourself and Barney were very dear friends. Barney McKenna, the banjo player, and he had some
Mm.
you had some great crack with Barney and his
Yeah.
replies.
Barney had an amazing ability to distort and twist the English language, and yet there was a certain thread of logic in the words that he used to describe things. Quite funny at times. I remember he was in hospital one time, missed a couple of days of an English tour, and we used to ring him up every day just to keep in touch and see what was happening. So I phoned him this day and I said, "Did they do any tests yet today, Barney?" He said, "Oh yeah, they did a brain scan, found nothing." But yeah, he had that. Yeah, there was another. There's loads of Barney story, Barneyisms we used to call these this crack. We were on a flight to London one time. I was sitting beside Barney, and it was quite a turbulent flight, thrown all over the place. And Barney was a nervous flyer at the best of times, and he was really nervous to stay. And I was trying to calm him down and said, "Listen, Barney, try and think of it logically like this. Try and think of it philosophically. You're not going to go till your number is up, and that's it." And he looks at me straight away and he says, "Supposing the pilot's number is up, what's going to happen?"
A
You
certain
know,
amount of wisdom in that, all right.
with regard to twisting words around, we were doing himself and Michael Howard, great classical guitarist, great friend of ours. Himself and Michael Howard and myself were doing a little spot on a concert in the National Concert Hall here in Dublin. And we had done some charity gigs for this particular promoter before, but on this occasion there was a fee involved, but Barney wasn't aware of that. Well, and never occurred to him to ask me, like backstage, we're actually announced and a big round of applause. And as we're walking over to the microphones, Barney says to me, "Hey, John, is this another charity show or is it feasible?"
Very good. There was a time, John, I remember meeting you all, I think it was in Germany or somewhere one time, and you were telling me that Barney was very tired one day, or either late night or something. I wasn't too sure. What happened in that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember that. It was the start of a German tour, and there was a bit of a concert went great, and there was a bit of celebration afterwards. I went to bed early that night, unusually, but Barney and Eamon, I think it was, some of the lads and some of the audience that went off on a bit of a bender around the town. And anyway, the next morning, Barney says, God, I feel a bit tired this morning. I don't think I got to bed till about 2. I said, Barney, it wasn't 2. I heard you passing my door at 5 o'clock this morning. He said, oh, jeez, there was this cry of anguish. He said, oh, jeez, you shouldn't have told me that. I'll be knackered all day now.
The psychological effect.
Yeah, and isn't it true as well? If you don't know what time you went to bed, you'll assume that you feel whatever you feel is normal. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think if when you wake up in the morning and if you think you haven't slept at all, maybe you have slept more than you think you've slept. You're all tired, but as
That's
long as you were snoring all night, you'll feel an awful lot better.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. How the crack.
Well, John,
Hmm.
you're getting back to your writing for a moment. Of course, oh, there's one I'd love you to do. Don't do it yet. If you're in the mood to do it, I would love it. We won't talk about it yet about it. But the your poetry, in fact, your poetry is written on a wall here in the Trevor beside Seamus Heaney, a beautiful one. Again, that one's about the fiddle. But there was one thing that you probably won't get on any record. You wrote a poem about an uncle of yours that used to do a bit of singing.
Oh yes, that's right. Actually, it's one of the poems in the book. Yeah, because my uncle Jimmy down in Limerick, my mother's brother. Uh, he was a great man at a party. Needed very little encouragement to get up and do a spot. And he had quite a nice singing voice, but the only problem was he couldn't sing a tune. He couldn't even sing 2 notes in tune. And his performances were hilarious. We, as young kids, we were in stitches laughing at him. And he knew he was out of control himself right from the beginning. But he entered into the spirit of the party, and he'd do his number anyway. And it came back to my head, back to mind that whole scene a couple of years ago when I was starting to write poetry, and I wrote a poem about my uncle Jimmy singing Danny Boy. And I'll just give you a quick demo of what he sounded like.
Please do, please do.
Oh, Danny Boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the flowers are dying. 'Tis you, must go and I must bide. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the fields are hushed and white with snow. 'Tis I'll be there in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, oh, Danny boy, I love you so. Be tricky to learn that, wouldn't it?
It's very subtle stuff.
Anyway, this is the poem I wrote about it. I called it Uncle Jimmy Murders Danny Boy. At the mere mention of his party piece, Uncle Jimmy takes the floor. With scant regard for crotchet or quaver, he is airborne with Danny Boy. Free as a banshee on the wing, he takes wild swipes at the melody, blissfully outsoaring it on ascending passages, swooping unashamedly towards the bass clef on reckless descents. Goaded on by the glee of the mocking crowd, he throws Caruso shapes to an imagined gallery. On full throttle for the challenge of the upper octave, he overshoots his target by a delightful semitone. Oblivious of the trail of music debris in his wake, he braces himself for the final assault, strangling Danny Boy note by note as he soars into the stratosphere for a glorious crescendo. That a bit of crack.
Fantastic. You do. You use the haiku as well quite a bit, John, don't you? That form of poem.
Yeah, the 17 syllables in 3 lines, 575. Actually, I wrote one about the COVID cocooning for my grandchildren recently. Just a bit of a challenge to see if I could put a few words on it in the haiku form. It goes, COVID cocooning, love us by staying away, save hugs for later.
John, there's been a request coming in to. I'd love to hear you playing more on the whistle.
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind doing that, John? Excellent.
Right, here we go. The long note. You were the one for the phrasing, Luke. I loved the way you played hide and seek with the pulse of a song, stretching a note beyond the bar line till you left us dangling at a cliff edge. With the thread about to snap, you rescued the rhythm and reeled us in to catch a missing heartbeat.
Great, John. Great. I was just thinking there, that tune that you played, everybody plays nowadays. It's such a beautiful tune. It'd be lovely to end with. And maybe you tell us about it. And before that, I want to say thanks so much, John. It's been such a great pleasure meeting you in any context, even in over telephones and Skypes and Zooms and all the rest.
Actually, we could talk for hours. Sure, loads of things to talk about, but sure.
Absolutely. We're just scraping the surface.
Yeah, that's
Are
right.
you're still on the road, John, from time to well, not at the moment, of course, but you've been playing with various people, Declan O'Rourke and various other people.
Yeah, Declan O'Rourke and Damien Dempsey, and I was over with Ralph McTell for his 75th birthday concert in London there, just before Christmas. And I played with Glenn Hansard and Imelda May and all these wonderful, a whole new generation of musicians coming up, and very generous in their remarks about the influence of the Dubliners and so on over the years.
Yes.
So it's a whole new adventure.
John, do you miss Ronnie and Luke and Barney and Kieran and all the gang?
I think of them. I think of them nearly every day, but not in a mournful way, but rather in a joyful way. Just thinking how lucky we all were to get together and have such great adventures around the world. You know, very happy memories. Yeah,
Yes, fantastic.
they were great characters. Now Ronnie was off the gargle one time. He could be quite gruff at times, you know, but a heart of gold behind it all. He was in Bewley's one day. He was off the gargle and he was having a coffee and hiding behind the Irish Times. And this little girl comes over and says, "So you Ronnie Drew?" He said, "Yeah." Says that lady over there is my granny. She's a big fan of yours, but she's very, very old. Will you come over and say hello to her? And Ronnie said, "What age is she?" The little girl says, "She's 70, Ronnie." Well, says Ronnie, "I'm 73. Tell her come over to me." Anyway, but I was doodling on my daughter Siobhan's harp, and what I was trying to play were these four notes like a descending arpeggio. Hear that? That's what I was trying to play, but not being able to play the harp, I misplayed the fourth note, and I got. And I thought to myself, that's a nice sound. With the four strings vibrating together on the harp, a special kind of an eerie sound. And I thought, God, that could be a start of a tune. And the rest of the tune nearly wrote itself, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it has an amazing appeal. It means something different, perhaps, to different people, whatever pictures it conjures up, you know. But I wrote it in my mother's. That was in my mother's house in Marino. I was there doing a bit of painting and decorating and tidying up the place while she was on holidays. And Siobhan, my daughter Siobhan, came in with the harp and had a cup of tea, and then I was doodling on the harp, and that's where the tune came from. So it's now very popular all over Marino
Yes, and
and further afield. Yeah, I'll play a
great,
bit of
John.
that for you.
Please do, John. John,
There.
thank you so much. Thanks so much, John. I enjoyed that very much, and hopefully we'll be meeting up again before
Yeah,
too long, and before all in these hard times. It's very difficult to
anytime.
see anyone.
I just see one final poem here if you want to squeeze it in,
Yes,
Tommy.
yes, John.
And it's based on the notion that we all have. We all have a notion, I think, of leaving the world in a slightly better condition than the one we entered. And we all do it by means of what I refer to as our signature. We want to leave our signature on the world. For example, an architect, his signature would be maybe a beautiful cathedral or an outstanding building of some sort. But the musician does it in a slightly different way. And this piece is called Signature. The ploughman leaves his trace on field and furrow. The sculptor's mark is etched in chiseled stone. With sheaves of gold, the thatcher's name is written. In rings of clay, the potter's name is known. When day is done and evening firelight beckons, when tradesmen all are free from toil and care, I linger in the shadows with my fiddle and softly leave my signature in air.
Beautiful, John. John Sheehan,
Mm.
poet, musician, storyteller, philosopher, beautiful human being. Thank you very much, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Samuel. Pleasure talking with you.
Great.
I always will remember when the day we went away, sailing out at Belfast in the morning.
Well, that is lovely talking to John there. In fact, we talked on a little bit longer. Maybe sometime we'll bring more to you. But it's so good to be in touch with people this way. I see some friends, good friends from around the world saying hello. See, Brian Morrison had a nice comment about Uncle Jimmy's version of Danny Wise's. I sing the very same version myself. Thanks, Christina from France, and that S at the end of my name. I saw it coming up there. I'm not too sure if it's what it's supposed to be. I must look at that actually. And I I see there Can Bhattacharya from India. Can is an amazing character. He lives in Calcutta, and he organised a concert for me over there, a series of concerts. Plays the dotara. He's an ethnomusicologist as well, and maybe we'll have him on the program some of these days. Uh, also, the Burns sisters from New York, great musicians, and Jim Corr was mentioning there. See, Gabriel Skelly. Gabriel, how are you doing? Uh, Talking about the Merino Waltz. Sorry, but the quality of sound, it can't. These small microphones on the computers, they can't handle that kind of width. So it might sound a little bit thin at times, but John's records are available anyway, and it is great to hear him play. And Aidan O'Rourke, a cousin of mine, he lives in Canada somewhere. He drives a limousine, picks up uh, celebrities from the airport. He picked up Bon Jovi one day, and Bon Jovi they finished the concert, and Bon Jovi and these two of the members of the band were in the back seat, and you could hear them whispering, ask him," and eventually Bon Jovi says, "What did you think of the gig?" Nathan says, not bad, not bad." He says, "I feel a bit of a butt in there." "Oh no, it's very good." What? How could we improve it?" And Aidan says, "Well, maybe a few more old ballads, you know." Oh, Jesus, he nudged the Allabites. "You see, I told you these are the people that know it. Maybe like the Fields of Athenry, like, or something like that." So I'm not too sure if Bon Jovi learned the tune since or not. Talking about Barney McKenna there, all them stories is a man at home. He had three daughters, and they're always coming in late at night and coming back from discos or youth bingo or something. But he get fed up and he says, "Use three or a pair if ever there was one. Last night you come in this morning, and if you come in tonight, tomorrow, you better find some other place to live if you want to stay here." But there are different ways we have of saying things. Seamus Sloan down there in Houston, Texas. Seamus, I hope you're doing well. Mary Parks, my sister, and Carlo. Great to see you, Mary, online there. Phil Campbell, Phil and Tom are also doing this type of thing. Matthew McGrath from around home here, Bruce, uh, Bruce and Mary Conroy, Bruce Foley, uh, Colin Sands, my brother, uh, and it's a great way of connecting up, and I've really enjoyed it. Trying to start at 6 here, I brought in a pint glass of water, and the first thing I did was I spilt it on top of my guitar before I started to play, so it's a little bit bit of a bit chancy. David Donaghy there as well. David's a professional producer, director, wonderful man, produces Late Late Show and all those things, and I myself and David some very good times as well. His son Michael also does one of these programs. But anyway, what time of the night is it? My God, it's 6 minutes past 7, and not a child washed. I'll sing you one for the road. And many, many thanks. Drop me a line, and we'll be back soon again, I hope. And it's really great being in your place and having you in my place. So good to be back again. Shake the hand of a friend again. Think about you often when the winter breezes blow. You give a meaning to my song and a reason for to carry on. You welcome me with open arms in a home away from home. 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 Good night. Thank you very much. Ihuay.
I always will remember well the day we went away, sailing out of Belfast in the morning.